Now, a woman who 25 years ago, at the age of just 14, tortured and killed her 71-year-old grandmother was last month released from prison on licence.
But this isn't the first time she's been let out. Sarah Davey has been bailed and re-incarcerated no less than 7 times since March 2013 for breach of bail conditions.
Now, the decision to release her has caused outrage, with many arguing she should be locked up for the rest of her life.
So, should life in prison really mean life? Especially, perhaps, for child killers?
Well, to debate this, we're joined by former Detective Chief Inspector Colin Sutton, famed for catching the notorious killer of Millie Dowler, Levi Bellfield, and GBNews' own Patrick Christys. We'll start with you. Start with you, Colin. Great to have you on the show. This case is absolutely vile. Reading the detail of what happened those years ago, it's shocking to anyone. How could such a person ever be let out of jail?
Well, I mean, I think as a general rule that life should mean life, and you'd probably expect me to think that, given that I spent so much time trying to put people there. I think we have to qualify that where the killer is a child, and we have to accept that to consign somebody to be in prison for 60, 70 or 80 years is probably something that we ought to think twice about. So I understand why this happens. I think the fact that Sarah Davey was let out 7 times as an adult perhaps tends to show that she hasn't made that journey to rehabilitation in quite the way we'd expect. It's a matter for the parole board, and I think there are a number of cases recently where perhaps the views of the parole board don't actually chime with the views of the general public. You know, we think of John Warboys, we can think of Colin Pitchfork and Venables as well. And so, you know, it's something I understand the outrage. I really understand the outrage. I think that 14-year-olds who kill should be given a chance to rehabilitate? Yes, I do. Do I think that somebody who's had 7 such chances and blown them away deserves an 8th chance? Then probably I think that's a lot more doubtful.
I would have thought that by chance, sort of 3 or 4, they'd have got the picture, but clearly not. Patrick, what do you make of it all?
Well, some people are born evil, aren't they? And why should we have to suffer to have them back out on the streets? There are some crimes that are so serious that you should pay for it either with your life or for the rest of your life. This was a sadistic murder, the details of which absolutely cannot be read out on air at this particular time of day. There are 3 issues here. Is this justice for the families of victims? When someone like this is allowed out, maybe in their 30s, they can start a family of their own, they can go on holiday, they can do all of these nice things in life that person can never do because they've been killed and the families have a life sentence. Has she been punished, this individual, Sarah Davey? There's pictures of her in full makeup and dresses in prison. I would argue there are also reports of her being allowed on nights out and things like that. I don't think that's punishment. Has she been rehabilitated? You've mentioned she's been allowed out on licence 7 times. She was recalled to prison once for as well having drugs in her system, for goodness sake. She's breached her bail conditions. I just think a release like this is a slap in the face, really, to us all. It's another example of soft justice. And just because she's a child, well, she was old enough to commit the heinous crime she committed.
Well, Colin, are some people fundamentally born evil, irredeemable? Should we just not let some people ever back into society?
Oh yeah, absolutely agree with that entirely. You know, I understand the need for punishment, and I think that's a thing that the general public demand and desire. And I agree with that. This woman, girl, whatever she was when she committed this, is just so horrible. She does deserve punishing for it. There's no doubt about that. I've always been really more concerned with protection and with safeguarding going forward. And I think in some ways, you know, there's a parallel thing with imprisonment. One is the punishment which society deserves, but equally important, or perhaps even more important, is the fact that we need to protect other people from these evil, wicked people going forward. And, you know, if she is in the position now, she's an adult, she's in her late 30s, I understand, and she's still not taking these chances for her rehabilitation, then I would question the decision to let her out. Absolutely, I would. It seems she's been out for about a year, and we didn't know about it. that might indicate that this time she's playing the game. But, you know, to give somebody 8 chances in those circumstances, I think is...
It seems a lot of chances for someone who committed such a horrific crime. But, Patrick, surely there is a rehabilitation route for some killers, especially those who are children. Can people not change their lives around?
I mean, I would have a look at some of the evidence. You've got people like one of the Bulger killers who's been recalled to prison for some absolutely disgusting crimes, child pornography images, drugs offences as well there. I question whether or not that individual has been rehabilitated. I think if somebody is a complete and utter murderous psychopath, I personally think there is a responsibility. The responsibility should always be to the wider public. There's people who are just deranged. Now, there is an argument as well to say, yes, fine. If somebody is a child, then maybe do give them a chance. Not 7 chances, though. Certainly not. There's other crimes, though, as well, that I just don't think you can be rehabilitated from. You know, there's a story in the Times yesterday as well about, you know, a guy who was a major player in Al-Qaeda, for example. We're apparently going to let him back out onto the streets. How many more chances do we have to give these people? You look at Usman Khan, the Fishmongers Hall attacker. He conned people into thinking he'd been rehabilitated. People died. And what I would like to ask the parole board is, when it comes to Sarah Davey, would you live next door to her? Because someone is going to have to. So would you allow these people to come out of prison and live next door to you? And if the answer to that is no, then they should spend the rest of their lives behind bars. If we're not going to introduce the death penalty, which I understand maybe not for someone who's a child that commits a crime.
Colin, you mentioned before how very often it seems the parole board is out of step with the views of the public. Why do you think it is so often the case that the parole board seems to be in such a different place to perhaps the modal morality of the United Kingdom?
Well, I mean, they're just another limb, really, of the sort of establishment that we now have, and there's this groupthink that is so out of step in so many ways with the vast majority of the people in this country, and they're just another facet of it, sadly. They don't have a very good track record, it has to be said, in spotting the people that ought to be released. I think that's fair to say, and a fair criticism of them. You know, and that's the issue. Of course, there will be scores of people that are paroled that we don't hear about because they do go on, I suppose, to lead a useful life, and we don't hear about that. But these high-profile cases where the act itself was of such devastating evilness, I don't think we ought to trust the record of the parole board in spotting them when they're fit for release.
Well, Colin Sutton, former Detective Chief Inspector, and, of course, our very own Patrick Christys, thank you very much for both joining us and talking through that issue. Really fascinating and, indeed, concerning case.
That detail of being let out 7 times already, being brought back into prison, it does kind of show, does it not, that perhaps hasn't been rehabilitated
At what point
to
do you
live
get the
outside
pitch?
of the prison. I mean, I don't know. But the details of that crime are absolutely horrendous. Let us know what you make of it. gbnews.com/your say. Should life really mean life, even if you are a child when you commit the crime? 14 in this case.